Today, I'm going to get my first head coaching job and I have a lot of options to choose from. But first, we have to recap how I got here. I started as an offensive coordinator at New Mexico, and even though we went 6-7 in my first season, that was nothing compared to the following year where I coached the offense to a 12-2 record while winning a Mountain West Conference championship. Because of that, Nick Saban wanted to bring me over to Alabama as his offensive coordinator, and I took that job immediately. We ended up finishing 12-2 in my first year, and even though we didn't make the playoffs or win the SEC, I had job offers flooding in from loads of schools. I ended up narrowing it down to Tulsa, Louisville, and Ohio, and even though it pains me to say this as a Kentucky fan, I had to take the best opportunity, and that was the Louisville Cardinals. Additionally, quarterback Mike Tyler came over to the Ville with me, but we weren't supposed to be good at all. My first game as a head coach was against Drake, and Mike Tyler started it off with a laser. Even though the rain was making it hard for my receivers to catch it, I continued to call passing plays because I trusted my offense to get into the end zone. I understand Drake isn't the toughest of opponents, but for the first time, I was in charge of the defense as well, so I needed to get used to that. I think the most frustrating part about coaching at Louisville was witnessing all of the drops, but I had to realize that I'm no longer coaching Alabama receivers. In the end, we would easily win, and I started my head coaching career 1-0. I was coaching against my old team the following week, and they were actually favored to win. However, that didn't stop the sophomore from hooking up with the other sophomore. Mike Tyler connected with running back Curtis Bruner for a 78-yard touchdown on the first play of the game, and then on the next drive, he found his tight end in the end zone for another 6. I was pumped up about how well we were giving it to them until this Mike Tyler interception, and New Mexico would go on to tie it up at 14, so I was relieved that this play call worked to perfection just minutes later. With about 20 seconds left in the half, Mike Tyler delivered a dot to Mike Smith, and by the end of the third quarter, it was clear to me that my team was better, so I was glad that I came to the Ville where I was trying to build up my legacy. The next week, I was coaching against Kentucky, and there was one issue. I grew up as a Wildcat fan, hating the Cardinals, so it was weird coaching against my favorite team, especially because Kentucky was Louisville's biggest rival, and I'm not saying I'd leave the Cardinals, but if the Wildcats wanted me, I'd pull a Chris Beard. For now though, I was stuck coaching on the wrong side of the ball, and it wasn't pretty. Fortunately, we finally got into the end zone in the second quarter, but my defense was getting fully creamed, and I couldn't believe that at one point we were down by 31. I had to make sure that I kept my job as a head coach, and this performance was not going to impress my boss. By the fourth quarter, we finally got another touchdown, but we still got pounded by Kentucky, and my athletic director was not happy. I had to coach this team to a bowl game this year if I wanted to safely keep my job, but that wouldn't be easy because Mike Tyler was getting destroyed, and my defense was leakier than someone on Miralax. However, there was a bright spot on the team, and that was freshman John Swain. He was our returner and the backup running back who outran everybody on the field and took this kickoff 102 yards to the house. He might have tied it up, but that alone wouldn't win us the game, and I was getting sick of watching my best receiver drop the ball. I felt like besides the return, nothing was going our way, and I had no idea how I was going to keep my job. I think Mike Tyler was starting to regret following me here as well, because after back-to-back sacks, he completely lost it, and I was forced to put in Ronnie Mitchell due to Mike's excessive screaming. My team's chemistry was worse than ever, and we let Pitt get their first win of the season. So I knew that if we didn't beat Virginia today, I would be on the hot seat. And Mike Tyler decided he wanted to start the game the worst way possible. I'm not sure what happened to him, but this was not the same quarterback that I coached at Alabama, and I was fortunate that my defense was able to make some clutch plays. However, that level of play didn't translate to my offense, so after Mike Tyler underthrew his receiver on this play, I looked him in the eyes and I threatened him. I made it very clear that if he didn't win this game, he was benched, and to my surprise, his offensive line didn't seem to care to help him. By midway through the third quarter, it was a 3-possession game, but that changed as Mike Tyler finally got us on the board less than 2 minutes later, and all of a sudden, Virginia only had a 6-point lead on us. So after my defense got a very clutch stop on third down, Mike Tyler had one last chance to win it and keep his starting job. He started off the drive by finding sophomore receiver TJ Keith for a 57-yard play. play, and then he went right back to him on the game-winning touchdown throw. Somehow, I coached us to a win after being down by 20, and that alone could get me another year in Louisville. But that wasn't the only reason I wanted to stay in the state of Kentucky. And no, it wasn't for the horses either. Because of my location, I could play my favorite game, Underdog Pick'em, and I accidentally shaved my mustache, so you all better refrain from roasting me in the comments. Anyway, if you live in any of the yellow states, you can play as well, and all you do is predict if your favorite athletes will go higher or lower on a certain stat line. If you want to get some free cash to play around with, Underdog is doubling your first deposit up to $100 when you use code Bordeaux or the first link in my description. But now it's time to see how the rest of year one goes. And this is what the ACC looked like so far. I had to coach in a tough home game against Dabo Sweeney, and it wasn't going to be easy to outsmart him. I called a play that should have been a touchdown, but Mike Tyler dropped the ball for no reason, which led to a Clemson defender scooping it up and taking it all the way back to the house. At the start of the second quarter, Cade Klubnik extended the Tigers' lead to 21, and after number 64 completely missed his blocking assignment on this play, I realized that my team never stood a chance in keeping up with number 18 Clemson. I was in for a long rebuild here at Louisville, and I just had to make sure that I didn't get fired. My goal for the season was to get us to a bowl game, but I didn't know if it was possible because we'd have to steal 3 of our last 6 games. I knew I had to coach us to a win against Boston College, and we started off badly. I couldn't believe we turned it over, and then, within just 3 plays, the Eagles were in the end zone. So we were in for a rude awakening. Luckily, TJ Keith was determined to help us tie it up, slipping off of guys and picking up a 27-yard play. But that wouldn't be enough to keep us in it, as Mike Tyler was really struggling in the rain. So I decided to lean more on the running game, and it was slowly getting us back into it against the Eagles. We started the second half by getting a huge stop on 4th and 9, but my offense just wasn't getting it done this Saturday night as we still trailed Boston College by 11. So we needed a perfect fourth quarter, and honestly, it wasn't looking very good for us. However, Mike Tyler threw a dot with 2.5 minutes left, and he had a chance to tie it up on the last play, but he couldn't get the throw off, so we fell under 500 on the year. Luckily, I had another chance to get my team a win this week, and beforehand, my athletic director told me to come up with new plays for the game. So I let my halfback throw a first down pass out of the Wildcat formation, and my offense seemed to move the ball better when he threw it. I hated having to settle for 3, so I was glad when we got 7 on our next possession. However, with 90 seconds left in the first half, we found ourselves going down 11 to Florida State, and it continued to get worse and worse. I don't understand how I got stuck coaching such a bad team, but I wish I took an easier job. At this rate, I'm pretty sure Julian Newman would destroy my offensive line, and this game was becoming a disaster. We ended up losing by 24, and that was our 5th loss in the past 6 games. However, I had a chance to get my biggest win ever against undefeated Syracuse. They came to the Ville as the number 4 team in the country, and it looked like they were going to leave as that as well. Our offense was still lackluster, and our defense certainly wasn't good, so I had to watch from the sidelines as my players couldn't execute my plays. We had a terrible first quarter, and I had to bench quarterback Mike Tyler after this interception. Even though he transferred here because of me, I was way too mad to keep him in the game after this pick 6, and it was nice to watch backup QB Ronnie Mitchell actually run the ball with speed. He lit a spark in our offense, coming in and getting us on the board for the first time in the game, so all of a sudden we were back within 1 possession, and to start the third quarter, I watched Ronnie Mitchell pull off one of the best throws I'd seen this year, which got us all the way down to the Syracuse 7-yard line. From there, we would actually tie it up against the 4th best team, and I don't know what I did with this change, but this could single-handedly save my job and get us a bowl game, as Ronnie Mitchell continued to dot up the Syracuse defense with ease. This was a completely different team than the one I coached for the past 6 weeks, but with 7 seconds left, Syracuse tied it up. On top of this, overtime against the Orange wasn't going well, as they scored almost immediately into it, so I was shocked to see that Ronnie Mitchell stepped up and tied it back up right after, but I made him go for the win here, and that was the greatest play call of my career as I took down a top 5 team. I was nervous when we played North Carolina, as it felt weird to start a quarterback 24 overalls worse. However, he got a huge win last week, so he deserved the starting role, and I'd love to say that Ronnie Mitchell continued to play well, but it seemed like since North Carolina had film on him, he was easy to stop. Additionally, I still couldn't coach the defense defense at all, so it's safe to say that Ronnie Mitchell's first start didn't go as planned as we lost by 31 points. But since it seemed like I was going to keep my job, I decided to give Ronnie Mitchell one more chance to stay our starting quarterback. But he didn't start off in the best of ways, turning the ball over to Wake Forest less than 2 minutes into the game. However, with our bowl eligibility on the line, he seemed to figure it out, and I was proud of my defense for forcing a huge turnover in the red zone. By the end of the first half, we had gone back and forth with the Demon Deacons, and I was praying that we could win so we could stay bowl eligible. Ronnie Mitchell's flaws continued to show throughout the night, but we still had a 2-point lead, and this touchdown in the fourth quarter would seal the game for us. Not only did I get us to 5-6, but I also landed us some great offensive recruits, and if I could coach us to a win today, Louisville would be bowl eligible after this up and down season. But that would be much easier said than done. North Carolina State was giving Ronnie Mitchell all sorts of problems, so we were struggling to score. With a minute and a half left in the second quarter, the Wolfpack took an 11-point lead on us with this touchdown run, and with an offense that couldn't move the ball, I knew that our chances of making a bowl game were gone. This fumble that was returned for a touchdown made me realize that I should have never betrayed Mike Tyler, so let me know in the comments who should start at QB next year, because I don't know what to do. I ended up finishing my first season 5-7, and nothing about my team's stats were impressive, so I would need to change that in year 2 at Louisville.